Good morning, everyone. We'll probably give it like 2, 3 minutes for people to join the call, and then we start.
Okay, cool. Yeah, sorry, keep going, Jam. Nice. I definitely have probably got like 20 or 30 more PT attribute pairs that I need to look up the dependencies for. So I'll definitely give this a try next week. I'll pull an export, do some filtering, and yeah, let you know if I come across anything from that. But yeah, super useful. Thank
If
you.
that's Zara, can you mute her mic?
Can I? Let me see. Mm, yes. Oh, no problem.
Hi, Zara.
Okay, I'll wait for 2 minutes. People are joining. Okay, so let's get started. Um, Good morning, everyone. Um, yeah, so I'm like looking a bunch of squares. I was going to say, like, if everyone is like comfortable putting on your cameras, that will be nice. Um, Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, it's nice to see all of you here. So for those who don't know me, I'm Catalina Alzate. I am an assistant professor of graphic design in the University of Illinois. And so we have today a presentation by Jane and Josh about the Good Point project. Um, so what we will do is kind of a presentation slash conversation among Jane, Josh, and myself. And we want to kind of explore various aspects of projects of this project that are relevant to kind of people in graphic design, because that's kind of where I'm coming from, but also for people working on community health, those who are familiar with acupuncture, or if you are not, this will be a good opportunity to learn about that. So I will introduce them and then talk a little bit about my kind of introduction to the poster and how did I find about it. And then they will kind of explain to us a little bit about the project, and I will have some follow-up questions, and then we will open up for more questions and more of a conversation among all of us. So, what's this? So I will start with a short bio for both of them. Joshua Milo has been working professionally as a graphic and a motion designer, filmmaker, and editor for 15 years. And to balance his work in the digital world, Joshua has spent extensive time studying permaculture, regenerative agriculture, Western herbalism, and cooking. Growing up, his father practiced acupuncture, and Joshua has always been deeply fascinated by the healing arts. Just gonna admit more people. Okay, and Jane. Jane has been practicing and teaching acupuncture since 2010. Inspired by the pioneers of acupuncture in the US, she is passionate about keeping acupuncture accessible through the community clinic model, scaled pricing, and patient education. Jane's practice is focused on pain management, sexual and reproductive health, and she works at Olo Acupuncture and teaches at Pacific College of Health and Science in New York City. So to begin talking about the poster that is right behind me, I will mention that I saw this poster in our local community acupuncture clinic. So for those of us who are in the Urbana-Champaign area, our acupuncturist is here in the call. Hi, James. It's nice to see you. So the local acupuncture clinic is a magical space in town where we can go and rest and record our healthy lives with the use of acupuncture. For those of you who do not know what acupuncture is or how it works, Jane will give us an introduction to it. But that was the context in which I saw the poster, and I was very surprised because it's a very unique poster that I had not seen before. Part of what I do in my research is to study anatomical drawings and kind of the social and cultural history of that. So for me, this really kind of stood up, and I kind of contacted them I was like, where is this coming from? Like, who are you and why are you making this? And this is so great. I want to know more, like literally with that spirit. And so I feel it's a very special and inspiring piece of graphic design, anatomical drawing, kind of a medicine in itself. So that's why I kind of invited them to talk to us. And my hope is that this is relevant and inspiring for both students and faculty and also like community members who are here, because all of us need to rethink the way that we look at bodies in general. So this is kind of a very specific example for that. So yeah, I would say that's my intro. Jane, you can take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. It's such an honor and a privilege to have your attention, truly, especially about this project because it means so much to me and has been like a really long time in the making. Um, so, just like how it came to be, I started working as a teaching assistant for a acupuncture points teacher back in like 2011. And after graduating acupuncture school, and just fell really in love with the process of drawing the channels as a tool to learn them better myself and to use as a teaching tool to the students. And through that process, originally I was using basically like very generic looking simple black lines on a white sheet, like a ditto, like a classroom, like super basic anatomical drawing, based like from the CAM book, an acupuncture book. And so that got a little boring. So I started drawing the channels on magazines, big fashion magazines. I really liked V because it was big and glossy, and it was fun to practice drawing the channels, the acupuncture points, and the channels on people in different positions. And through that, just saw how beautiful it was to see the channels on all different types of people, including different skin tones, different body sizes, and different types of dress, different hairstyles, all the things. And so through that process, I was like, we need posters that look like this. And that is when sometime in there I met Josh, and I had tried in a few different ways to start to think about how to make the posters. And it was difficult for me because first I was worried about like copyright, and then I was worried about this. So I actually got a friend to model for me, to Angie Pittman, who's the model for this poster. And we did a photo shoot. But it became like very clear to me that I needed a graphic designer to help if I was going to do a digital image. And like aside from that, had met Josh and then told him about that vision, and he was like, "That sounds great. My dad's an acupuncturist. I'd love to work on a project like that." I was like, "Cool." And that's basically how we started along the process of making the poster. It's been, and I'll let Josh talk now too, but one of the things that was just felt really important about the poster, in terms of like physically being in the world, is that it became really evident that it's important for the images that are in a clinic space to represent the people that are coming into the clinic space, so that they feel like they belong there, so that they feel represented, so that when they see the points on a body, they know that they have those points, and it's not just like a concept that that's for other people. And so that's basically how we came to the poster in the form that it is now.
Jane, sorry, Josh, so there are people in the room who don't know what acupuncture is.
Okay.
So I think giving like a quick intro to it will be useful for like context, so it's a little more clear.
Totally. So acupuncture is the insertion of tiny needles into points along the body, or along channels or meridians or pathways. And it helps to move stagnation, so stuff that's stuck, whether that's blood or energy or chi, or emotions. It's really good for helping to regulate the nervous system. It's really good for making all the systems work better. So, improving sleep, improving digestion, amazing for pain relief, amazing for reproductive health. I do a lot of work with people who are having fertility issues or painful menstruation, things like that. Um, Neurological issues. It's kind. I say now, like it's good for everything. There's not a lot that acupuncture can't help with. Um, and since 2010, I've been working in a community model, which means um, often it means that you're a bunch of people in one room, and that makes it possible to lower the prices so that it's accessible to more people. Um, and yeah, you often fall asleep during acupuncture, have a little nap, wake up feeling like $1,000,000.
Um, First of all, thank you all. This is really cool to be able to have this conversation and share this project with you all. Yeah, I grew up with acupuncture. My dad was pretty much the only person that had given me acupuncture. I think I first got it maybe when I was 12 or so, and then until I was until I met Jane pretty much, or like into my mid, yeah, until I was like maybe 27 or something. I'd pretty much only ever gotten it from him. And when I moved away from home, I wouldn't really get it so much. And I always thought it was really cool and interesting, but as a younger person, I didn't really have like a profound experience with it necessarily. Just as like a young boy, I was like pretty healthy, so it didn't like I don't know. There was so then I met Jane and there was this moment yeah, it was like pretty much the first time she treated me. She's like, "Oh, I work at this community clinic, we're both living in New York City." And she's like, "Yeah, come and I'll give you a free treatment." I was like, "Oh, yeah, maybe I should like get back into acupuncture." And I had this this like my knee. I had never had any pain with my knees, and there was like this night we were at this party and we were dancing and stuff, and somehow I hurt my knee and it just like kept hurting me for like 6 months. And I went and she gave me a treatment, and like right after the treatment it was totally gone. And I was really, oh wow, this really is some good stuff. Like, okay. And then I started to kind of like open up back into thinking about it more. And I think it was actually just a little bit before that. I had a friend who was going to PCOM, the school that Jane was teaching at in New York City. And I remember thinking, um, like this day before I was hanging out with her, I was like, I had a cold and I was just sitting in bed thinking like, damn, like everything inside of me feels like such a mystery. Like what's going on in there? Like I really wish I could just know. I wish I could have like a little, computer screen or something like on my wrist that just has like a readout, and so I could have a clear understanding of what was going on. And then I kind of like casually mentioned that to my friend and she's like, "Oh, well actually you actually do," and like with Chinese medicine, when you first go for acupuncture treatment, they'll do a diagnosis. They'll look at your tongue and they'll read your pulses. These are like little subtle changes in your pulses, like on both wrists. And I was like, wow, that was really cool. Like kind of rediscovering this thing that I had known about as a kid. And then, yeah, shortly after that, Jane shared with me her idea of making this poster. And I was like, well, I could actually help you do that. And so we kind of like set out on this journey to do it. And I hired a friend of mine to make the illustration, and we ended up going this route. Like originally she wanted to do it over a photo, and I felt that yeah, so back when I was little kid I would hang out at my parents' office. They had a private clinic, and I would sit in the back room and I would like work on my homework and listen to the radio, and the posters were on the walls and I would always just stare at them, and sometimes I'd get all close to them and like look at them, and they're all in Chinese. So I was like, there was just like this barrier of understanding them, but there was just this sort of mysticism to them, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. Um, and I I felt like when we started to approach this project, I was like, well, I think we need to kind of, because that was my first exposure to him was these illustrations of these, this like Chinese man with all the points on him. And I was like, well, if we're gonna like step into this place and kind of like remix it and bring something new to the table, I want it to like exist in the world that I first was exposed to it. And so, I kind of pitched her on the idea and ended up hiring a friend of mine, and we got the illustrations put together. And luckily, he's very talented and able to like really do a decent justice to an anatomical drawing, which I know is a very difficult thing to do. And we went through some revisions, and then we like added all the other, design elements to it so that it would be really clear, and all the names are both in Chinese and English. And the English names are really beautiful if you get a chance to like zoom in on them. They're all like very poetic. Um, and I remember Jane was describing to me, and so we also like ended up writing this little piece on the side of it together that's kind of like a description of the poster and kind of acupuncture, and it's like quite layered. And she told me right away, Jane told me right away that the body, because she works in this community clinic. At this point, she'd probably worked there for like at least like 8 years or so. And um how the body is like this landscape. After seeing so many bodies on the table, she started to kind of like see past, what you kind of normally notice, and really notice these nuances of how the fluids, our waters and our blood and our energy like flow across this landscape. And so somewhere along the way, as we were putting this post together, we're like, oh wow, this is a map. And like as you see and translate all of these Chinese names, like they like had that seemingly in mind too, um that it's a map, and that like the poetry of all these names, they and Jane could probably speak to this more, is just like relevant to like how you like go down to this place and there's a spring at the bottom of the mountain, or like you go up here and that's like where the eagles fly or something. There's like this really beautiful intricacies and nuances to our landscape on planet Earth here, and there's like a really interesting like microcosm macrocosm reflection in many ways that happen in the body. And so we really wanted to like include as much information as possible so that this could not only be really interesting for any viewer, but also like a really good tool for practitioners and students. Um, but I really feel like this is something that could be for anyone, like this should just be in everyone's house. Like everyone's kids growing up should just see this and kind of like be like, whoa, like in the same way that I did, but because it's actually in English also. Or I mean, if they learn Chinese, that's good too. But to like get to start of see like what's going on inside of us. And um yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna chime in, and I think it was important to look at the poster while listening to you to get a better idea. I would say a few things. Again, because not many of us may be familiar with acupuncture, and I feel like this poster embodies a lot of what acupuncture is. And one of the things that it is that is actually extremely complex and at the same time very simple. So it's complex in the sense that it deals with the complexity of the bodies, right? So the kind of what this anatomical drawing is doing and the other kind of acupuncture posters is to show us that there is they call it like a hidden anatomy that is not the one that we learn normally in Western medicine. But these are points that do exist, even though we can't like kind of see them. And like the debate about are these reals? What's the kind of medical significance in acupuncture and all that will be like an ongoing thing forever? Because I think that's not the point of acupuncture, to prove that this is true. Because what is proven throughout centuries is that it works. So the way that this works is by stimulating some of the points that are shown in this map, for different conditions, as Jane was saying, from a headache to depression to absolutely everything. um, so and I wanted to say that I think one of the big kind of things that is achieved with this project is to be able to convey such a complexity in a way that is equally complex, but it just doesn't look that complex. Like I think there is an aspect of this that makes it very approachable, different than what we normally see in acupuncture drawings, who are like more flat, or like, they don't have like the personality, literally the personality that this has. And that's something that I wanted to ask you about. And maybe after that, people can also ask additional questions. But you gave this character in the poster a name and a personality and a story. And I think that's also something very unique from an anatomical poster. And I would like to know about that process. Yeah, because there is a whole storytelling exercise around the drawing. So if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's actually, I'm so glad you asked because that is, and Josh, help me remember if this, because this is my framework around it, but we had sent the poster out to a lot of people to get feedback about their thoughts on it. And one of the, and I just, it's, I think, helpful to say that, like, I did have some hesitation around, like, putting out into the world an image of a Black woman who doesn't have clothes on as a white person, and just like having feelings about whether that's appropriate. And so for that reason, did want to send the image out to a lot of people to get feedback. And the person who modeled originally for the poster, Angie, who I used to work with at the acupuncture clinic, who became a friend, and really the inspiration for this poster, she recommended doing that. She recommended giving the like a little blurb about who the image represents, and like, and then Josh and I had a conversation about the name specifically that you could talk about if you want to, but that line, it's of "she's full of power, agency, and awareness," is written by Angie Pittman.
I didn't even realize that. Yeah, I think that just though it was really pretty heavily based on, the image of our friend Angie, I think just like as you go from, you know, an actual digital image of a person and turn it into an illustration, there's like a bit of translation that happens, and we kind of like ended up creating this new person, this new um yeah, this new person. And I think originally I considered naming her oh man, I can't remember. Just thinking about different cool like black women with afros that, have been really influential in civil rights movement and stuff. And we ended up landing on Nikki so that it would be a little bit less overt. But I didn't even know where this text came from. I thought that you wrote this all yourself, Jane, but
Yeah, Angie wrote that first sentence, and
okay.
then I wrote the rest of it about the channels.
Cool.
And she gave her permission, of course,
Mhm.
to use it on the poster.
But yeah, I really like how this little paragraph here, like it kind of does that same job of reflecting back to the person, like, oh, this is something that is applicable to me too, you know? It's like, oh wow, this is like this body looks kind of like mine. These points are on me too, you know, these and then these other aspect, you know, 365 acupuncture points, you know, 16 luo vessels, primary channels and um yeah, I just love that it yeah, teaches us about
And
who.
yeah, and I wanted to compliment on that because the words that you chose for the description, she's full of power, agency, awareness, and pleasure, is really what happens when someone does acupuncture for a while, right? I think that's the beauty of this kind of medicine, which is makes it different uh, from kind of more normative standards of medicine in which um, as a patient, as someone who's receiving acupuncture, you really listen to how is it going, and then you decide how much of it you want, or like how do you want to engage with it. And it's really like your choice to you are driving your healing process, not waiting for, like an external person to like give a pill that will kind of numb the feelings, but it rather actually makes you feel more. It makes you become aware of what's going on rather than having to eliminate the pain necessarily or having to, it does eliminate pain, but it's not in a way of like negating the pain. It's more like the process of like living through it. And that agency in healthcare, it just makes a complete difference to the way that we are trained to think about healing and the way to think about pain in general. And so I think that's what I was saying. Like a lot of this, the poster embodies the core, I don't know, values maybe of acupuncture in itself, but it just brings that to a person. So it's like, oh wow, acupuncture is not only this system or this form of medicine that exists outside, but it's also what we are and what we could be if we kind of we engage with that, which is something very kind of impressive to me in the way that kind of it came together. Um, I don't know if we want to like if anyone would like any to ask any questions or add any comments at this point, and then we kind of follow up on that.
I have one question. I don't know. Can you guys hear me? Yes,
Yes.
awesome. Yeah, so I mean, this is great. This is very interesting, and I just want to know more about the context of the poster. I'm wondering who the audience is for the poster because I know you've been talking about like how this poster can be very helpful for those who practice acupuncture, but also I'm wondering if these was also meant to be as an educational material for everyone, maybe like for those who like to know more about their bodies, or if this was meant for people who actually kind of like get involved in the practice and who like to like practice this, or like who was the audience for
Um,
this?
yeah, that's a good question. So originally it was for acupuncturists to hang in their clinics
Uh-huh.
and students who are learning the points. And there's a lot of information on the sides there about the point categories that is relevant to students. And that was important to me to like represent the point categories in the way that they are as an educator. And then I just think it's, Josh really pointed this out to me that like it is because I'm so kind of focused on that little world of acupuncture clinics in school that Josh pointed it out that like it is a really like he said it from the beginning. He's like everyone should have this in their house. Like anyone can buy it and should buy it or get access to it because it does show how there's a channel that runs from the foot to the face, and that like there's a reason why when you push on your foot it can affect a headache, for example, or like yeah, and on the that bottom blurb that we wrote that says this is a map is a little description about um, what it is, the map, and how the premise of the whole thing for me is that like your body is giving you signals all the time. And I think of them as love notes from your body uh, that help you to get on the right path to embodiment and self actualization and all the things. And if we listen to the body, it will steer us down the right path. But we were taught, from a really young age in this culture to like turn the signals off, like take a medicine, to ignore it, tough through it, and so like through the discussion of that, and Josh and I wrote this together. We sent it back and forth and did voice recordings and things. But through that process, like realized that like, oh, this is something we want everyone to know. We want everyone to have it. And the ultimate goal of this was to make a bunch of these that represent all different types of bodies and skin tones and shapes and sizes and all the things. So that eventually it could like legitimately be in anyone's space, and make sense and like not be like a mysterious thing as much as like, oh, this is like a map that I'm actually like, I have pain here. Let me look at where that is on the map and like touch it and like just see what happens, and then follow that line down the arm and like see the points along that channel and touch it and see what happens, as like a tool to teach us that invisible anatomy like Catalina was talking about. Like anyone can learn that and should learn it. you know I think everyone should know that map because it's so empowering. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, I have a question about that relates to the map and the points and the map. So probably is a very basic question, and the reason why I'm asking this is because I don't know anything about this field of the study or about this practice. And the question is, are these points meant to be touched by someone else or by like I can touch them by myself and it's gonna have the same effect, or if it's gonna be different if someone else does that to me? Is this a map for whom? Like for me or like for other people to touch on the body of someone else? So I have all these kind of like questions about those points.
Yeah, I think it's a map for everybody. That's like the ultimate dream. Is that like, and that I think that's one of the cool things about acupuncture is that it really does put like the like medicine like back into the person's hands. And I always tell people like, of course it's nice when someone else does it for you, but like you can do it not with a needle necessarily, but you can do it with massage and should. We
Mhm.
all should be doing it. Feeling the points, seeing what they feel like. Um, and of course, other people should needle you unless you're an acupuncturist. But but acupressure is just applying pressure to a point, and that works. That does work too. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I I mean I really fell in love with acupuncture like several more levels through the process of working on this. And my partner actually, she was in acupuncture school the whole time while I was working on this over the years, and then and now she's practicing. And I've always kind of wanted to go, but acupuncture school is a pretty big undertaking. It's like a good 4 or 5 years of full-time study. And yeah, there was a point, and I do want to revisit this of trying to make kind of like maybe a zine or like a series of zines to kind of like convey some like introductory knowledge of how to apply this stuff to yourself, like for me there's one PC6 is like right about here. It's really good for when I'm feeling nauseous. You can kind of massage on that point and it works great. Or like there's these other ones. Um and they're not all like they're more complicated. They're not all like super simple, like, oh, I feel sick, push this one, or like I feel sad, push this one. It's more nuanced, but there's definitely a good amount of acupressure that I think that we can do to ourselves. And I would love to like make more educational materials through this project to help that study become more accessible to the average person who isn't studying for 5 years.
Yeah, James.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to a couple things that were mentioned, but just mostly that I have a clinic and it's like 1,000 square feet and a big room, and I had the more standardized. First it was just a male model, 3 posters of and with like a Chinese or Asian body, and then someone was like, "Hey, you should have a woman," and I that was a little bit harder to find, but I did find that too. But and people kind of would look at them here and there, but as soon as I put this poster up, it people go to it, look at it, read it. They're there for a while. They're not just going like, "Oh, like, huh, he was doing something over there." So people really, my patients really will engage with it a lot more. I think because it's a lot more vibrant. Like you said, it has personality, but also the explanations are a lot more welcoming or engaging. And I think it goes back to that question that the woman just asked about, like, who is this for, and kind of bringing that out, and that it's more interactive, and also the medicine itself is more an exploration of the body and what it is and what we're living in, what we're living through, and so that's, I think, very helpful, because it's a lot of what I find that I'm doing is reflecting that back to what people are living through. And I just since I have the training, I can do things more, a certain efficiency, or but the person exploring and sensing and kind of processing what's going on is always more the goal than me doing something spectacular or something like that. It's more of like it's a guiding in that awareness, I guess. Thank you.
Thanks for saying that, James. I'm so happy. I just love that people look at it.
And I know Angie as well, so this is all nicely, interconnected that way. So
That's so amazing. Truly, yeah.
I wanted to speak a little bit about kind of the level of detail, and I love that this image is there on the website, for people who want to buy it so they can get a sense of how it looks when you look closely at it. But there is always this saying that our bodies are like a universe, right? They are so complex, and that's one thing to say it, but another thing is like to be in front of this and be like, wow, this is one way of describing that universe. I think it connects a lot with how magnificent our bodies are and how incredibly complex and magic at the same time they could be, and how like every single inch of the body can have a story. And I think that aspect of contemplation, I also, when I go to the clinic, I sometimes see people just standing in front of it. It's like similar when you go to like a museum and you're looking at a piece, like it's like you're looking at something that demands your attention and kind of creates this relationship with the viewer, which is in the context of anatomical drawings, it's something very unique that obviously we don't see with whatever more traditional representations of the body, or like Western representations of the body, that it's so foreign. It's like we read it, but then it's a different process to make sense of it. And that's all, like that's obviously kind of the beauty of acupuncture, is that it works in the interconnection of all the body parts. And I think that's what makes it makes sense. It's like, oh wow, like all of this is part of the same story rather than compartmentalizing and just thinking on the organs as individual entities or whatever. So I think that for me is the most interesting thing in terms of how when we look at an anatomical drawing, we are actually learning about ourselves and what it means to create pieces like this one that help in that process rather than making us every time distance, every time more from our bodies because we don't understand what is being told to us about our bodies. So I think that's, for me, that's one of the things that also kind of stood up to me, and I continue to stare at it. You know, like there is so much information on it that you could keep looking at it, and it's like so nice to look at it too. So it's such a like a pleasurable experience. I love it. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else has any more questions, or Jane or Josh, if you wanna comment on anything.
I have more of a comment, but yeah, just an appreciation for it. I was in a session yesterday, and knowing that I was coming here to this talk today, I was curious, so I looked around the walls of the clinic there, and I paid more attention to them. But then I also realized that they kind of settled into the background for me, and that I never really would have looked at, the posters that they have that are more like just of these like white bodies that kind of I don't connect with, I guess. And so yeah, I was like really paying more attention, thinking about your poster, and then thinking about how amazing it would be if it was at this clinic. And I was like, oh, I was thinking about buying one to have, to have it there. But yeah, I guess, thinking of a question now, have you seen other posters like this before, or is this kind of like, is this a new thing, or yeah, have you seen anything like this before anywhere?
I haven't really seen, I haven't seen any people of color on an acupuncture poster. Relatively recently, like the there have been people that are making like different design aspects to it that look a little bit more like modern. But I even with those, I feel like a lot of times it. I don't know. The body always does kind of seem really just like white and and like thin and pretty, like kind of stereotypically attractive or thin specifically, and like yeah, and when it's female bodies at least. And so yeah, and that was one of the reasons, like we paused this project for a few years because it just felt hard to know like how to move through it. But and I had said a bunch of times, like I just want it to be out in the world. Like I want someone to make a different uh you know skin tones, like different skin tones represented on the posters. Hopefully someone makes it. And no, as far as I know, there aren't any yet.
Yeah, that's always been our plan is to make a bunch that represent all different colors and shapes and iterations of people. Um yeah, representation really matters. Like, growing up, like I never saw anyone that looked like me on TV. Um or anything that I saw. Like I remember I started doing my hair like Ricky Martin because that was the only person that looked sort of like me when I was in high school. And there's just this like osmosis of what I'm exposed to, whether it's through media or just like my wherever my physical reality takes me. And so I think that I don't know if we're quite at that threshold, but I do think that there can be a point where it's pretty normal for someone to have this in their house. Because I think that just being able to see it, kids and adults, like I mean, people might be a little hesitant because it's like kind of a naked body, like on half of the body, and then the other half is anatomical. And then I think as we approach other poster designs, like maybe we can try to make ones that are like varying in the range of what people might feel more or less comfortable with. But Yeah, I mean, the hope has always been to show more people. And the only project that I know, art project that I know that is like even remotely similar to this is Alex Gray, this artist. He's got this whole project called Chapel of Sacred Mirrors. He's like in upstate New York. He's kind of like this hippie artist guy. He's like really into DMT and like trying to paint like all these really intricate paintings of these, these like spiritual realms and stuff. And it's pretty cool stuff. And the theory behind this particular body of work, the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors, is that is like it's supposed to be like about the same size as you, and you go and you stand in front of it and you see there's one that's like the skeletal system, one that's like the veins and the arteries and the nervous system, and it like keeps adding layers so that you can stand in front of it and be like, oh wow, like this is a mirror that I'm looking into, and that I have that in me, I have those bones, I have those veins more or less, I have these muscles, I have all these things, and then it starts to show like different colors of skin tone and different iterations of people, and I think it's like a series of like 20 different images or something. um and that wasn't really like a point of inspiration, but it was like as we were making this and as I was reflecting on what we had made, I was kind of reminded of seeing his work before.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just curious. Because I was like, wow, I hadn't seen anything like this before. And yeah, it's really great. Thank you.
Um,
I guess we'll start closing, but I wanted to maybe just the next thing to talk about and is about this notion of a map, which I find it kind of very interesting that that was kind of the framing that you gave to the project. And I think it again, I will just restate a few things because some people are new to acupuncture today. So again, like this may not be like super clear yet, but kind of back to what we were talking about, kind of that self-exploration and the touch that one can do on oneself, or how in an acupuncturist inserting a needle. I think thinking on a map is such a powerful way to say that to guide that exploration or I don't know. I feel like part of this is also that we find those points ourselves too. But the map is like it shows us that that is real and that is all connected and that is all it's kind of and kind of the very crazy thing that happens with acupuncture is that sometimes you have like a pain on a leg and then the point is on the arm and it kind of helps with the leg problem or like like it's not really like related, like it doesn't really go to the point of the pain necessarily, and that's kind of the beauty of the system in itself. So I think having a map for such an intricate system is it's a very like an approachable way for people who are looking at this to think about their own bodies. But I don't know if there is anything else that you wanted to say about this notion of the map or anything that you could. I don't know. I think this text is also very beautiful. I mean, I'm not expecting people to read it right now, but I don't know if there is something about this that you would like to share.
yeah, I would definitely love, we don't have to read it right now, but I would definitely invite you to read it. I really like how it turned out, um and in the process of writing it, like the way that that kind of like expanded my awareness a bit too. But yeah, in the way that this is a map, in the way that learning this map or being exposed to this map, it helps you orient yourself within yourself, is kind of similar to, in a way, like how a lot of people are finding themselves more interested in astrology, like that's like another orientation of like who you are, when you were born, where you were born, and how we relate to, like our planets and cosmos. And then also just like more physically, like, just to have Google Maps be such an accessible thing, and to be able to like know where you are right now, like know what direction you're pointing at, to like have a sense of this place, these places that we occupy. And yeah, just like the concept of mapping and I remember I heard this podcast a bunch of years ago and it was about this indigenous group of people. I believe they were in Australia and they always would know no matter where they were like where north and south and east and west were like they just it was like part of their own like their upbringing that in the back like in the side of their head, you know, they just always knew where they were orienting. So they kind of had this like little bit of like a subtle image of like a bird's eye view of where they were in space. And I think that, you know, as you think about maps like that are more internal or maps that are more just external, like there's just like these added layers of awareness that we can gain.
Yeah, and I just like to add that that it really speaks to like the intelligence of East Asian medicine and Chinese medicine, and just how, you know, like astonishingly accurate it is, you know, and how it's been around for thousands of years and before any imaging was possible. And now that they're doing like more research on the channels and like nerve endings and nerve pathways, it just like continuously is proved to be more and more accurate, like the channel system itself. So where a channel runs and putting a needle here will stimulate this part of the brain that moves this part of the body. Like it's really so mind blowingly accurate. Um, and and I just found, yeah, and so like the more I learned it, the more I realized like, you know, like studying the channel really did help me like get better results with the needles, like, and it just it made it really clear that like this is something, like this is a map of the body, like it's very literal that you can like overlay it onto any body and then like learn it and feel it and see it in action, like, yeah.
Great. Well, I would say that I think one of the things that I, you know, when you were we're talking and I was kind of reading this simultaneously. I don't think I read this before in detail, but I like what you wrote here about that having some channels that move us through the world and kind of energy for a just to make a simple word, and other channels that have to do, and by channels I mean like like one of the line that crosses one of the bodies, the body, and other channels that store emotions, and others that store childhood experiences, and others that kind of store ancestors' stories and wisdom. Um, so maybe that's a beautiful thing to close with, to say that all these things exist on us all the time, and they are all moving through us. There is nothing static in our bodies, even though we live in this extremely sedentary world. But I think this wording reminds us that we are way beyond flesh and blood, and that we carry our story and that of our ancestors, and that when we need to heal, like a tool like acupuncture is there to help us navigate those stories and those channels. Um, yeah, so thank you so much, Jane and Josh, for sharing this with us today, and everyone for being here. I hope this was, I don't know, a space of fun for you all today on Friday morning. Um, okay, so everyone have a good rest of your day. Thank you for coming.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
you. Bye bye.
Thank you.